good, the bad, and the odd. They do go on.
Welcome to this quite special episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Odd with your host, Mark. And today I've got a different host. I'm joined by Scott. Hi, Scott.
Good morning, mate. How are you?
Not bad, thank you. Now, I have guested quite a lot on Scott's various podcasts. I think I was first on Pause when we covered Zulu and Battle for Algiers.
Yeah.
Essentially, colonial forces fighting African movies.
Yeah,
For some reason, I don't know. I know Zulu because Zulu is one of my favourite films. It was my favourite film at the time. There's others that have. Well, no, it's still like top two for me. You know, it's second maybe. Yeah. But Battle for Algiers was another. Bizarrely, we did. It's quite a grim film, and we did it for Christmas for some reason. I don't know.
It was in the run up to Christmas, wasn't it? Yeah.
So
cheery. Yeah.
Such a weird choice. And I've also guested on his Real Britannia. We've done a few on that. The Rebel now, which is a Tony Hancock comedy. Now that's kind of become my birthday movie, I have to say, replacing Zulu. Weirdly, right? I really like The Rebel.
Different two movies to, from one genre to a completely different.
Same early 60s date though, weirdly. For no reason other than I really like that particular movie and a few others. Most recently, I came on to talk about the Children's Film Foundation. That was
that was a good one.
We have to mention for British listeners, the Talking Pictures channel have also started doing on a Saturday morning a reprise of Saturday Morning Pictures with a full program, which is awesome.
It's absolutely brilliant, yeah.
Yes, so I would definitely recommend, if you don't know about it, go find Talking Pictures on. I think it's on. Is it Freeview? I'm not sure.
It's Channel 81, I think. It's around about the early 80s on Freeview.
It is a Freeview, and it's also on Sky, which is what I have. But today we are actually sort of going back to one of the things we talked about in. I can't remember. Was it Real Britannia? I think it was.
Real Britannia. This was the first Real Britannia, I think you guessed it on about. Really? It's over a year ago.
Okay. Yeah. It was for the movie version of the TV comedy show Please Sir, which we enjoyed.
Yeah.
I said in that episode I was wrong. Yeah, I mean, it was good. We will talk briefly about the movie while we're talking about this too. So what we're going to do is, this is really for older listeners, I have to say, because we're talking about Please Sir, which was a comedy TV show which ran for 4 seasons in the early 70s, and then a spin-off show of it called The Fenn Street Gang. There was a spin-off of a spin-off as well, which I'll mention, but we did none of us watch.
None of us remember.
So none of us remember either. Yeah. So. But I will mention it as sort of part of the history. So Please Sir was essentially a comedy where a sort of new teacher appeared at a sort of rough London comprehensive and sort of tried to get the year that we're doing O-levels or GCEs or whatever it was, the 5th year, which is like the 16-year-olds, the equivalent of GCSEs now, sort of known to be a very rough class, and it was him kind of doing that. And there's been some films along those lines that are kind of fun, where teachers are going into rough schools. I mean, there was grim ones like Blackpool Jungle, but I do remember there was one that's quite obscure with Glenda Jackson in a similar role, which was a comedy with her and Oliver Reed called The Class of Miss Michael. It's quite an obscure film, but quite good. And that is like a rough London school too. And there was also in the Zeitgeist various films in the early 70s about school life. For example, Melody is one we covered too, right?
That might have been the first one you came on.
That might have been the first one. That one, I remember talking about that and saying there's a song in it that sounds like the one from Please Sir. So yes, it was before.
How it happened. Yeah.
Oh man, the chain of, chains with chains. So anyway, we're pulling back the curtain a bit. This is Sunday morning and it's Valentine's Day, so us pair of sad sacks got nothing better to do.
No, of course not, mate.
There's nothing better to do. Okay, so now one of the reasons I used to watch this as a kid, right? I'm a You Master, right? You Master too.
I always remember that the thing that stirs the biggest memory for me is the LWT logo that comes up at the beginning. When it's just like, you used to have like the Thames TV logo or whatever come up. And it's that, the scrolling of the LWT coming across. When Thames handed over to LWT on 5 o'clock, I think it used to be, on a Friday afternoon. That was my cue for the weekend. You knew the weekend started, and it usually meant that television programs were a little bit better as well than what was on.
I agree. Yes. Yeah.
So you'd be looking forward to stuff like that. Your Saturdays, you'd have your Doctor Who and your Generation Game and your Two Ronnies or whatever and all that. I remember now. You saying Please Sir was on a Sunday afternoon. I remember it being on a Friday evening, but that might have been one of the late.
No, sorry. Please Sir was a Friday evening. Fenn Street Gang, I think, was on a Sunday afternoon, but it changed.
They even repeats as well, because obviously you're a little bit older than me, mate. Not much, you're a little bit older.
Yeah, a little, just enough to remember Please Sir. You probably more remember Fenn Street Gang, I'm going to guess.
No, I've got more memories of Series 2 and Series 3 of Please Sir, and I'm thinking I may have caught repeats of those as well, rather than the original.
Possible, yeah.
Because he's... 1968 started,
Yeah, I don't remember the first season of Please Sir at all. I rewatched it for this. But I don't remember it at all. And it's structurally quite different and would be memorable, I think. I certainly remember watching it in colour. But I think a lot of my memories, which I thought was Please Sir, is actually from the Fenn Street Gang now I've done some rewatching.
Right, okay.
I thought there was way more Frankie Abbott stuff. And he's one of the characters, which I'll expand on in a minute, that was actually in Please Sir, and it's in Fenn Street, so I'm misremembering quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
But watching it again sort of set me straight. Let's set the scene, though. So we'll just talk about Please Sir first. There were 4 seasons. The first 3 are the solid ones, with the ensemble cast are all present, which I'm going to talk about shortly. But the 4th one, they all kind of drifted away and other people were involved in it. Wasn't so good. And I'll talk about that shortly. Now, most of the first, I think, 3 seasons, or most of the early ones, were written by John Edmonds and Bob Larby, who are quite the writing team. If I remember rightly, they were responsible for things like The Good Life, I think, Brushstrokes.
Brushstrokes was the other one. Yeah, Good Life, definitely. The thing I noticed going back on these, this is early sort of testing the water of their sitcom writing skills, and a lot of the characters are very caricatured in this. When you go back, you've got the school dunce, you've got the school mummy's boy, you've got the Lothar, all of these are very highly characterized and almost comic-like. When you get to things like The Good Life, you can see that their writing has matured into creating more believable, fleshed out characters. Like Margot Ledbetter, for example. What a great invention that was.
Yeah, she is. They were all 4 of the mains in The Good Life are really well drawn, but Margot in particular is
classic British sitcom character. But this lot, you can just see this is what was appealing to the TV audience at the time. Was we're still talking at the tail end of the Carry-Ons and things like that, so things are a little bit saucy, things are a little bit totally un-PC now in a lot of the episodes, but we could look back at anything from this era and say that anyway, mate. But it's interesting that this first series is completely different to the rest of them as well, as you say.
Yeah, I will say though, I feel it was very progressive. I mean, the main character, really, the pivot, the audience surrogate, is the teacher played by John Alden. Hedges, Bernard Hedges, called Privet Hedges. And he's a very progressive character, so I don't think there's anything in here you can watch personally and feel at the end of it was a misrepresentation.
No.
There is, like, for example, racism, but I think it's tackled in a fairly great way, actually. For example, another series they also wrote, which is not as well known as A Good Life, but running alongside it, written by these two, is Get Some In, which was about RAF conscriptees, national servicemen.
Yeah, do you know, for years I thought that was a John Sullivan comedy. I thought it was the one he did before Only Fools and Horses and Just Good Friends, and all that lot. Yeah.
No, it was Esmond Larby. Now that is a little more primitive in the way it deals with things, weirdly, whereas The Good Life's fairly sophisticated. Then they also went on, as I mentioned, Brushstrokes, but also Ever Decreasing Circles.
Good. Yeah, I used to
and a few others, but none you'd really recognise, I don't think. Maybe 1 or 2, but those are the sort of big ones. But anyway, as a writing team, they kind of worked. And honestly, I feel that the episodes where they write tend to be significantly better than some of the others, certainly in the later series. Though there are some decent ones with other writers in the early ones. The early ones, as you say, they were trying to figure out the format, I think. Now, season 1 was quite interesting. Firstly, it was broadcast in black and white. It says here, we were thinking 68, but it says here it originally aired... Oh, no, sorry, I'm reading the Fenn Street. That's right. Forget that.
8th of November, 68, I've got
68, yeah. Now, it's in black and white. It was a 45-minute, which would have been an hour's running time rather than half an hour. And it was more like a drama comedy. I mean, there was an audience laughing, but there was quite a bit of drama in it. And so they tackle some reasonably serious subjects. First, we get Edges turning up. And then, but there's various ones involving racism, and there's certainly one which is possibly a bit dodgy, where there's a Greek character who's extremely violent, and Potter, who's our resident bigot, really is really playing it up. Let's talk about some of the characters before. I don't really want to get into too much episode by episode. Firstly, there's the class, which is 6 main characters, isn't it? There's Dennis Dunstable, Maureen, Sharon Eversley, Eric Duffy, usually called Duffy, Peter Craven, usually called Craven, and Frankie Abbott, which is Frankie Abbott, or FA, as he likes to call himself. There's him. There's Hedges, who's the teacher. And then on the teacher's side, we have the headmaster, who's like this dithering, sort of otherworldly guy, Cromwell.
Yeah.
The vice headmistress, Doris Ewing, who's brilliant. Joan Sanderson, absolutely brilliant. Joan Sanderson, if you don't know her name, she is Mrs. Richardson in the Fawlty Towers. That's probably her most iconic role, but she was Doris Ewing before that, and very good too. Very kind of similar. She's not as horrible as Mrs. Sanderson, but she is a bad act. And then we get Pricey, the Welsh chemistry teacher, who's quite an amazing character, in my opinion. And Smithy, who's like this ancient... I think he teaches history. I really don't know, but he's like this old bloke.
I can't remember. Yeah, he was just always falling asleep. And waxing lyrical about some past times and how classes were and all this. Is that it? Have I covered everyone in the first few? Oh, Potter, of course. I was going to say the janitor. Derek Guyler, the great Derek Guyler as Potter, the janitor with constant references to his war record and his medals and fighting.
Now he belongs to the comedy pompous school of British comedy. Will Hay, Tony Hancock, Potter. It's kind of, he's pompous. He thinks he knows everything. He uses the wrong words often. He goes on about his war record. He's obviously a coward because when it comes down to it, he kind of runs away or whatever. But he's kind of, and he kind of tries to run the school. He holds back chalk and he holds back this and he holds back that. And Hedges they have quite a prickly relationship at first, don't they?
It takes a while for them to actually get to sort of respect each other a little bit,
Hedges will not put up with Potter's pomposity, and Potter won't put up with Hedges' what he thinks is impertinence, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
It goes on. And Potter's always fawning all over the headmaster, washes his car and all this, that, and the other.
That's right, yeah. Just constantly, yeah.
Some of the themes tackled, I'll just mention some of the themes tackled in the first season so you can kind of get a feel. There's one where Sharon produces a naked picture in art class, which causes consternation. And they're kind of like, well, who modelled this? This is indecent, all this. And then Sharon's like, well, I did it of myself. So it's like, okay. And it kind of settles down. Then we have one where Maureen develops a crush on Hedges, and he kind of has to handle it quite tactfully, obviously. But that is a constant thing.
That carries on through, doesn't it? I mean, that's evident all the way through the movies and the movie and everything as well. That Maureen crush thing,
Yeah. Now, in the first time it's referenced, it's treated fairly seriously and problematically, but after that, it's used for comic effect.
That's it.
Now, we have to also mention these 16-year-olds look about 25, 30, really.
They are the oldest bunch of fifth formers ever, but nobody mentioned it at the time. It was
fine. Duffy in particular seems about 35.
Yeah.
Now the girls get away with it a bit, and Frankie Abbott gets away with it. Well, in fact, all of them kind of get away with a bit other than Duffy. Duffy really looks old. Dennis plays it well as a
Mhm.
young man, but he just looks
Oh,
old.
and he's a couple of inches away from having a full beard, with those huge sideburns of his as well.
Yeah.
And the thing as well, you think this was the 3 seasons that these guys were together. That must be, spread over 3 years transmission time, but that must be 3 terms. So they've aged another 3 years by the end of season 3.
And
So
you're right. Each season is a term, so it's the first term.
so they're even older by the time we get to the end.
Yeah, they get properly aged. But you kind of put out with it because it kind of was. Now I have to say the ensemble, the acting, and delivery is pretty great.
As a team, they are fantastic, and the interaction between them as it develops. I mean, the first season is an entity on its own, and it really doesn't develop until sort of like 2 or 3 into season 2, as far as I'm concerned, because I think the first season's more of an experiment.
Yeah, it's more about issues than
there's
the dynamic.
Yeah, there's comedy in there, but I think they're trying to tackle, and it's the 45 minutes as well, which is unique. And I just read one of the episodes. Then normally it went out 8:30 on a Friday. Okay, the original series. The one about the Greek guy that you were talking about.
Yeah.
They had to put out later at 9:15
because it had swearing in it.
It had swearing in it. So the old watershed all sort of existed even back then. And barbarian librarians as well.
Yeah, weirdly. So weird.
But as you say, there was things like racism, because did the first season have the Indian student in it as well? I think it did.
No, the second one. But they were still kind of edgy. I think the Greek one is the one where... And it wasn't an implicit racism. Well, it wasn't implicit. It was definitely implicit racism. It wasn't explicit, is what I meant to say. Basically, they're presenting the Greek Cypriots as quite barbaric, dodgy, scary, and Potter's giving it all that too. And Hedges is and while they kind of, Hedges softens them, they're presented that way, and that's what they are for them. So that one is probably the one where you're going, ooh, it could be if it were on today, it'd be like, I don't know, whoever the most recent immigrant wave is in Britain are now. That's was Greek Cypriots was the thing then, I think, and sort of in an Indian and West Indian somewhat, but they were dealing with Greek Cypriots here, and they were like knife wielding thugs. It's how they were presented, so it's a bit much, really.
Yeah, we sort of get a repeat of that in the movie with gypsies.
We do, and bizarrely, the father of this guy, who's the knife wielder, is also the father in the gypsy camp in the film.
There you go. He made a living out of that sort of role by the sound of it. There.
Yes, and he has a great line in the film, which I'll come to later.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. So yeah, then there's a bit where a library, I think it's gets like wrecked, and it was another form, but 5C get blamed. But Hedges shows his faith in them, doesn't he?
Yeah, he gives them the key to look after the library because he wants to show them that he's going to give them a bit of trust, and then he thinks that they've wrecked the library, and misplaced his trust, and it turns out it was the other form, and it's the old classic school fight in the playground almost afterwards to try and resolve it. But yeah, Barbarian Librarians, that one, episode 5.
Yeah, and basically we've seen the development of Hedges and 5C start to trust and respect each other. I mean, I think Hedges always respects them, apart from when he has to shout at them because they've done something terrible, right? But he believes them, doesn't he? He believes them when they tell him, and so they start not lying to him. They kind of start reacting that way.
Yeah, because the first couple, there is this real clash. Obviously, the new teacher, he's just fresh out of teacher training college or whatever it may have been. It's his first proper full-time job as a teacher, and he's given the worst class because nobody else will take them. This is the basic premise of it. But you also get this luxury of being a 45-minute show at the beginning. We don't get this in the later series, mate. You also get scenes outside of the classroom. We see his flat, his bedsit and things like that in this black and white series, don't we? There's a little bit of outside school life that you don't see until the movie again.
That's right. And that kind of, it goes back to that with Fenn Street, obviously, because they're not at school anymore, so it has to be in other places. But yeah, so it's more like they're mini plays almost with the same characters. but with a little comedy. And then the final episode's kind of sweet of season 1, where he thinks their original teacher, who had a nervous breakdown or something, is coming back, which means he'll lose them, and he's kind of sad about it, and 5C are sad about it, and it gets resolved. But yeah, it's kind of cool. And so it's only, I think, 7 episodes in season 1. So and then they basically reverted to a more standard comedy format. Now I have to say, ITV are known and sort of commercial TV are known as not being great for comedy, but actually so I think in the early 70s they were good.
There's some great stuff. You go back, I mean, Rising Damp was brilliant. Sort of
that was a bit later, wasn't it? Right? I think Rising Damp was
75. I think it started.
Yeah, I have to say, I think Rising Damp and Only When I Laugh are the last really good comedies they did sort of in last millennium, really, honestly. Yeah. But before that, there was Police. Fenn Street was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Rewatched it and stuff like On the Buses and stuff like that, right?
It was exactly this sort of time. That started 71, I think. No, actually, that was late 60s as well, wasn't it? On the Buses, it went on.
Yes. Yeah. And that ran for ages, and that was good fun.
And again, Black and White to start with, going into colour in season 3 or whatever it was for the On the Buses. Yeah. LWT. It was
LWT were the ones that kind of held up the comedy for commercial TV. I guess Benny Hill as well was quite important. Obviously, he was more of a phenomenon telly than a series, though. You know, in that he only ever did specials, and like people used to look forward to it. So that was a different sort of kettle of fish. Anyway, so series 2, we're into colour now, and we're getting the development of the characters now. Let's talk about some of the characters. Dennis is kind of interesting because in the first one, it's almost like he's got learning difficulties.
Yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable, isn't it, some of it? Because the way they treat him, well, to today's audiences, it would be uncomfortable. But, again, as the character develops, he becomes one of my favourites, actually.
He's more of a gentle soul than having learning difficulties, really. And his really unfortunate family life has not helped him, you know. So he's had trouble with maths and English and stuff, but he knows what he likes. He likes animals and he likes nature and stuff like that, right?
Animal impressions. That's
yeah. Dennis. If anyone ever mentions any kind of animal, Dennis starts doing it, you know. Someone says, "Oh, there's an owl out there," and he'll go, "Hoot, hoot." And I can't remember the name of the actor that plays him, but he's pretty great. And he was also great in a later show called Dear John.
Dear John.
As a character.
It's out to me in the our review of the movie. It's Peter Denyer.
Peter Denyer, yes.
Yeah. That's it. And when you pointed out to me that he was, is it Ralph?
Ralph, yes. Ralph Drink.
And I'm looking back and thinking, you're right, it is, you know, because he's got the glasses and the slick back hair, whereas throughout all of the police there, he's got the sideburns, the curly hair, sort of thing, you know. Fantastic, you know, for him to portray 2 completely different characters like that just proves what a great actor he was.
Yeah, he was really good. I really like Dennis. Duffy is more like, he's like the hard nut, but he's got a good heart. You know, he's not just he never bullies anyone, but if someone crosses him, he'll give him a bunch of 5s kind of thing, right?
I think Duffy's the focus of the group, isn't he? I think
he's like the leader. Everyone respects him.
Everyone's around him, yeah.
Some interesting stuff goes on in season 2. Now, we mentioned the first season was quite edgy, but there was some edgy stuff in this. There was one, for example, where Sharon claims to be attacked on the way home, is attacked on the way home.
Yeah, and Potter's the main suspect, isn't he?
Because he was crossing the park at the same time. And so that's kind of edgy. And then there's also another one where an Indian guy comes. Frankie Abbott weighs in with various racist quips about where'd you park your camel, all this sort of stuff. But the kid luckily gives him back equally, and the rest of the class won't have it with Frank. You know, just think, don't worry about him, he's an idiot kind of thing. And Duffy says something really interesting in this episode. He goes, it's because really the focus is no one comes to the PTA and Hedges is trying to get people coming, but this Indian kid joins the class only briefly, but his parents come to the first PTA, you know, the PTA, which annoys all the white parents. Because they're like, they're getting special privileges. So they all start turning up to it, which is like, whoa. And I think it was kind of like that back then. I got a feeling that definitely kind of would have happened.
Yeah, a bit edgy, as you say. It's
and that.
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think that's the first time we meet Frankie Abbott's mum as well.
She doesn't appear that often, does she?
No, not very.
I thought she was constant throughout it, but 2 or 3 times at the most.
Yeah, me too. It's more Fenn Street and the movie for sure, and then Fenn Street.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I should also mention Sharon is played by Penny Spencer, and I think when I came on yours, I insisted Carol Hawkins did appear in Please Sir. Because I remember her at the desk, but she doesn't, apart from one specific episode, which is an old Fenians reunion episode, so she's not at school then. So I misremember it completely. Penny Spencer was definitely Sharon. I definitely saw some of these episodes, but for some reason I remember Carol Hawkins in it, whereas in fact it's Penny Spencer. Carol Hawkins takes over in the movie and in the Fenn Street gang, really.
Yeah. Penny Spencer didn't really do a great deal before or after this.
No.
Couple of those saucy 70s, movies she probably appeared in, but pretty much retired after this.
Yeah, she was a very, very good-looking woman, for sure. She looked older than 16, for sure, as well. I've seen her recently in an old episode of UFO, which was a show that was made around this time. She was one of the... one of the people sitting at a desk. There's a lot of people sitting at desks in that show, men and women, and she was one of those. It's a sitting at the desk doing stuff.
Computer screens, yes.
That's right.
Radars, yeah.
So I'm trying to think. I'm going to pick out the more problematic or interesting ones, I think. We get...
There's the one where he wakes up in Sharon's mum's bed.
Oh, yes. And Sharon's mum in this episode is played by Dana Copeland, who... is in another actually quite good commercial TV series, Bless This House. She plays Sid James's wife in that, and she's a very good comedy actress. And this, she's got more of a Cockney accent, which is kind of odd to see her do. And she's basically she takes Bernard home because he's pissed or something, and he lets him sleep in a bed, but he thinks something happened. Yeah, doesn't he? And he's proper remorse and guilt, and I could have done this and all this. And then there's kind of, it gets a bit of a farce. It becomes like he overhears Sharon say something which suggests her mother is pregnant, like she's got one on the way or something like that. Where in fact it's a lodger or a friend or something. I don't know. So like he's really cut up about it, especially because it's Sharon's mum as well. But it kind of, it's a farce. I mean, kind of. That one's called The Decent Thing. So I think Bernard proposes at one point, which is weird.
Well, it's territory, mate, isn't it? That happened in every single sitcom.
Yes. Doris starts considering moving on. Doris Yule, and they'll get upset. I want to talk about Frankie Abbott for a bit. Now, I am going to talk about Frankie Abbott quite a bit when we get to Fenn Street, but man, this guy, he's kind of a legend in that he's the worst kind of mummy's boy you can imagine. He's constantly talking tough, and he's almost Billy Liar-ish, isn't he? In that he lives in a fantasy world.
It's very fantasy. It's he's got this obsession with weapons or war films and things like that. At the same time as he's making himself out to be bigger and tougher than what he is, but immediately we know that his mummy's little soldier, which is
his mummy's little soldier. Yeah.
It's the constant catchphrase that runs through all of this. And as you say, you don't see his mum that often, but she's always there. Influencing everything he does.
Yes.
Know exactly what he's holding.
And I have to say, it gets quite a bit darker. Now, I have a big affection for Frankie Abbott because my mum, when I was she was a single mother, and I was her only child. So I think I could say Frank. Excuse me. And she would sometimes make fun of me by saying, "You're my little soldier," because I used to like Fenn Street. Please, sir. And it's like, oh, shut up, mum. It's all that. But it always made me laugh, and I always liked Frankie Abbott because he's kind of obsessed with war films and American detective.
That's it, yeah.
American stuff generally is obsessed with. And he's got this leather jacket with a skull and crossbones on the back. But whenever there's like Duffy's like, come on, we got to go and get him. Like a fight's going on. He's like, oh, my leg.
He'll find it ducking out. Yeah. did a little bit of research last night when I was like flicking through a couple of episodes of Fenn Street. Did you know recently David Barry, who plays Frankie Abbott, has revived the character as an adult?
Really?
In 2 or 3 little short movies, like independent movies over the
No,
last.
I thought it was in plays. I thought I'd researched it. I thought it was plays, but it's movies, is it?
They're the little short movies. One of them is called Frankula, and it's a bit of a spoof horror thing, with Caroline Munro of all people playing like Vampira or some sort of female vampire.
Wow. I've got to see that.
Have a little look on his IMDb page, and I think it's from 2017, even up to very recently. He's got one coming out this year, and he's still playing the same character. 30
He's
minutes.
good at it though. He is good at that character, but it's a bit of a shame because he was pretty damn decent as Frankie Abbott. He was convincingly a fantasist. Let's put it that way.
Definitely got that from him. He's a very over the top. He's quite a caricature. All of these are quite caricatured.
Yeah.
But that was the whole point of a 30-minute sitcom. You had to have caricatures to get your point across, you know. And he plays it so well. I mean, he is the epitome of the mummy's boy. That's what I always go back to as you know, my touchstone. If anyone says a mummy boy, oh yeah, right, Frankie Abbott, you know.
And I think one of the reasons I like the movie, which I will say comes between season 2 and 3, and we'll get onto that in a bit, is not they. The great thing about the movie is they properly encapsulate all the characters really well. Well, maybe not all of them, but most of them really well. And Frankie Abbott's lines in the film are perfect encapsulations of what Frankie Abbott's all about. You know, like sitting in the class and Hedges says no smoking, and he pulls out a licorice pipe and says, "I'm a pipe man myself." Things like that. Stupid things like that. You know, I want to get tarts up my belt. He's constantly talking about tarts. That wouldn't fly today, right? But he's constantly talking about tarts and stuff like that, and he's got some weird obsessions in Fenn Street that I'll get onto shortly. Yeah, so there's some edgy stuff in season 2 as well, but it is much more sitcom. And we get a bit of sadness, you know. There's like Doris might be leaving and stuff like that. Yeah, and it goes on. Season 3 then was interesting because it happened. It was on while there was a strike on ITV to stop colour, so some of the episodes were broadcast and
it goes
recorded
back
in black
to black and white again, doesn't
and
it?
they're only filmed in black and white as well.
Yeah, it's a bit weird going back again. Yeah.
Now, interestingly, the film we'll talk about briefly. Comes between 2 and 3, and that's actually part of the continuity, which is unusual. And the main thing is Hedges meets this air stewardess called Penny, and they kind of get together. And in season 3, they actually get engaged and marry. So it's quite an interesting insertion of a new character.
So if you're really clever, you could watch them all in sequence and get the bit where they go away to the camp in the film. Yeah. And then, you know, just continue watching the series, and you could watch it chronologically if you work out exactly where it fits in. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It squarely sits between 2 and 3. The other thing is to mention is the fashions. The girls are wearing like hot pants and miniskirts a lot in this, right? There's a lot of that, and there's beads and.
It's 1970 now. We're into the 70s now.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on. And as I say, Sharon was replaced by Carol Hawkins in the movie, but then when we go back to season 3, it's Penny Spencer again. Apparently she was filming something else, so couldn't do the movie. That's the reason, apparently.
Yeah. And then Carol Hawkins carries on with Fenn Street.
So as I say, it starts with Dennis has left school and he's got a job as a rag and bone man, and he's very happy in his work, but Hedges wants him to come back and finish his education. So there's that sort of dynamic, right? Then I think the next episode, we actually get full on Frankie Abbott's mum, because Bernard gets engaged. It's called Stitches and Hitches. Bernard gets engaged and Frankie gets appendicitis. So his mum goes completely potty in the hospital with like, all my legs. You know, she's always got, my tubes and all this. I remember Hedges is trying to eat a burger while she's going on about her fallopian tubes and hysterectomies and things. And he's like put off his food. There's all that. So, so we get Mrs. Abbott. I think her name's Vera. Vera Abbott. It is mentioned in a later episode.
Doesn't this particular series sort of focuses on the fact that the kids know that this is their final term, so they're preparing to move on, and it's all about Hedges preparing them for the big wide world, isn't it? There's a lot of that running in through this. The thing.
Yeah, and they're talking about what they're going to do. Dennis, how getting a job early and leaving school early is a big deal to Hedges.
Yeah.
But actually, Dennis seemed pretty happy in his job, to have a job and getting away from his family.
Yeah.
And I felt with that one, Hedges was like, you leave him be, man. It suits him. But actually, it does work out. And these things tend to, right? And there's a lot of stuff about preparing them, as you say. There's Dennis getting prepared. I think there's talk of Duffy thinking about going into painting and decorating. Frankie Abbott wants to be a private detective and amazingly gets an office boy job in a detective agency. I cannot believe. Maureen is, because the stuff that's happening with Penny, she seems quite really put out. She gets put out. She says all sorts of nasty things to people, doesn't she? Trollop and all.
The thing we never mentioned about Maureen is she's quite religious as well, isn't she?
Oh, she is quite religious. She certainly is in a police. She develops out of it in Fenn Street, but in police, she's kind of religious. She decides she wants to be a nun, and Hedges goes to the Monsignor to sort of say, well, I've got to try and persuade her out of it. And Monsignor, you're right, it's totally unsuitable. There's no reason she should be doing this for this reason. And all this, so they're on point. And then also Duffy and Sharon start getting together as well. They, slowly over time. It's developed quite nice and slowly. It works really well. And there is some chat about him taking her away for the weekend, and she's not sure.
Yorker, yeah.
And at one point she goes, "How do I know you'll be able to control yourself?" He goes, "I respect you, Sharon, but I can't make any promises," which is honest. It's one thing about Duffy, he's honest. He does not.
That's true.
Whereas Craven would be like, "Oh, come on," Craven, I should say, is a bit of a loose, like playboy type, and he's always getting girls, isn't he, and all sorts.
Yeah, he's the one. I think he's the weakest out of the group, because I tried to define him in my own head as to how would you describe what his character is.
Yeah. And he's the most underwritten for sure.
Yeah.
But I think Malcolm McPhee, who plays him, really plays him well. So he doesn't need much for you to understand what he's about.
He's he's the one that's in the middle a little bit. He's always quite sharply dressed. That's the thing I could probably picture him as.
Yeah.
But he hasn't got that strong character of, say, Frankie Abbott or Peter Clear or whoever. He's just the one that's tucked right in the middle. He's the glue holding it all together almost,
Yeah, yeah. Craven, like you say, in fact, he gets replaced as an actor in the first season of Fenn Street, and it's clear that it's a different actor who hasn't got quite the same kind of charisma, and it doesn't work really. It's very flat. So it makes it clearer that Malcolm McPhee really did made that character, and it's really only him that can play it, because it's quite an underwritten character, if you know what I mean. There's one of these ones that actually basically influences Frankie Abbott for the rest of Fenn Street and everything, which is Hedges here. For some reason, Frankie Abbott tells Hedges what he thinks the facts of life are, and he talks about belly buttons. The girl shows the boy her belly button.
It's just the one with the rabbit.
And they talk about impressed. He goes, "We're not bloody." He's trying to give him a lesson about rabbits, and they're just not having it. So Hedges wants to give him but governors, do they threaten him? I've got that confused. So you cannot teach this to young children. He goes, but they need to know. It's all that. Oh no, it's the headmaster that doesn't like it. The
headmaster thinks that these just teach them about rabbits. That's how it's always been. Yeah.
So that's quite a conflict. But Frankie Abbott's got this thing about belly buttons is important. Looking at a girl's belly button. And whenever anything comes up after that, he talks about belly buttons. It's so weird. It is so weird. So there is a bit of that. So, and I think Dennis lands a job in a stable towards the end as well, which is great. And meanwhile, Bernard and Penny are planning their wedding, and they get married, but pretend they've gone off to the honeymoon when they actually want to stay at the hotel. But then the hotel gets snowbound. It's very topical, given how snowy it is at the minute.
That's right, yeah.
And the entire class turn up. Oh, and they haven't got a room because their room was released to a Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So they were sleeping in this study or, a common area because the hotelier said, yeah, you can sleep there. But then the rest of them come back because they've been snowed in. So they all sleep together in this one room, and Bernard and Penny have to spend their wedding night with the class. It's kind of funny.
That's true.
And then they've all gone their separate ways. And then season 4 starts. Now that is definitely weaker. The class has gone. Hedges only is around for the first few episodes, then resigns. I think he goes back to college and starts doing a course in psychology. So all you're really left with from the first 3 series is the teachers, but they're kind of dealt with in a kind of clownish way.
Yeah, this is the series that I'm most unfamiliar with because it just doesn't work for me. Once that whole class thing has gone, the teachers are great in their own little way. Eric Chitty and Joan Sanderson and all those guys were absolutely fantastic as a group working together as an acting unit. But it just isn't the same. It's not the same program. And to be honest, I don't think I've watched 2 episodes from this. And looking through the list of episodes, I might give it a go because we've got early appearances for like Molly Sugden and Derek Griffiths.
I didn't watch that one, but I was kind of going to, but I didn't watch it. The only one where the old class turns back up is called The Old Fenians Day, which is episode 14 of season 4. Not written by John Enswood and Desmond Larby, and you can kind of feel it. It's not as good. But that's one where we see Sharon as played by Carol Hawkins, weirdly.
Right, yeah.
But we also see Maureen has become a nurse, which I think suits her way better. So she's and that happens in the parallel run in Fenn Street Gang. Because what happens then, around the same time as season 4, is they developed a series called the Fenn Street Gang, which was about them leaving school and getting on with life, which is way better than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be quite weak watching it again, but actually I really enjoyed it. And I must confess, I've cherry picked from this. The first one I thought I had to watch, because it's nice to see the first few. Then I kind of cherry picked the Frankie Abbott centric episodes, which was very odd, I have to say. There is a one where John Alderton comes back and comes back in, and that's when he goes to college. We just see that, I think. And it's so basically about Hedges and Penny, really, and then it goes back to Fenn Street. So it's the 6 of them, the 6 of the class, sort of adventures of them making their way. Duffy's become a painter and decorator. Craven works for a businessman, he thinks, but it turns out he's a kind of a gangster called Bowler, which had its own spin-off series, which neither of us have seen.
Don't remember. There was 57 episodes of this, which
bloody hell.
Over 3 series. Yeah.
Oh, the Fenn Street Gang. I thought you meant Bowler.
No, it was only one, wasn't it? I think it was a series.
Yeah, there was
6 or 7, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 12. But we get early appearances of people like Christopher Biggins, Sally Thompson, and stuff like that. Robin Asquith. People like that. So there's some Tony Selby does there's one episode where Frankie decides, because I have to say Frankie Abbott's mum is a major character in the Fenn Street Gang. This is where you and I think remember Frankie Abbott's mum most from, apart from the film. She is proper full on mad. Anything Frankie does, she's constantly trying to emotionally blackmail. But what I like about Frankie Abbott is he is completely unaffected by it, mostly. He just does not care. It's like, shut up or I'll kick your varicose veins. All that. Or shut up or I'll burn your hair off. It's all that. And he loses his job as a private detective because he's useless. They actually give him a job to trail someone, which is ridiculous. And he calls himself Hank Abbott, and kind of and he's constantly going on about belly buttons, like I mentioned. And he loses his job and he joins the army, bizarrely.
Oh right, okay. No, I didn't realise that. I mean, I remember Celeste vaguely, and then
Celeste becomes his girlfriend.
Yeah.
in the later episodes. But the
yeah.
army one's weird because Tony Selby's in it as a drill sergeant or
Was it Get Some In?
which he played exactly the same character in Get Some In. So it's almost like a prototype for Get Some In for the writers. Weird, right? That is weird.
Yeah, foreshadowing, mate. Yeah.
And he gets a 48. He gets a 48 pass, he calls it. But then at the end, the MPs come and arrest him because he's been out for 6 days. He goes, I got 48. It says 48 hours, you pillock. And there's all that. And there's a fair bit of swearing in this as well, given when it was on.
Yeah.
So there's
was that a weekend thing as well, Defender? You said Sunday afternoons. You remember?
So it varied. At some points, it was shown on a Sunday afternoon. I think it depends what region you were in as well.
Yeah, we'd have got it London weekend. Obviously, we would have got it here. I've got the release dates here. From September 71 to July 73, it ran.
Yeah.
And episodes. Give me a second. Friday nights at 8:30, Series 1.
Okay. Friday nights, my mistake. Right.
No, Sundays, Series 2, 7:30.
Okay.
And Sundays. But then, don't forget, we were getting repeats on Sunday. Right around about the time after the big match, they'd repeat stuff like this, wouldn't they? You know, about...
Yeah, maybe it was that I was thinking of.
But yeah, the original was Fridays and Saturdays. But that's prime time LWT, mate, isn't it? That would have been on the buses time sort of thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I saw one where we see an early version of Celeste, but she's a bit of a different character, and I can't remember. It's the same actress, but I can't remember if she was called Celeste or a different name. But she was kind of Celeste, very Celeste-like, but she was like either Greek Cypriot or Greek or Italian. It was very broad, so it's really hard to tell who they were caricaturing. But that's with Linda Bellingham as a kind of friend stroke sister. I can't remember exactly. Linda Bellingham doing a weird accent and browned up a bit, it has to be said. And it was weird seeing Linda Bellingham in that role. She was a bit more, she had more weight on her when she was younger, I think. So she looked a fair bit different. So there is that. Frankie Abbott tries to pull Celeste and keeps talking about belly buttons, and Celeste is the same, I don't know. She's very kind of almost like a monotone version of Sybil 40, the way she talks, isn't it? I don't know.
Well, I was watching episode last night. Was it Abbott of Arabia or whatever one it was? You pointed.
Oh yeah, I recommended that one too.
Yeah, and I thought, I know that character, that actress, and I looked her up, and I couldn't see her in anything else that I would have remembered her from. She'd been in a few things.
She's been in loads of things, but I can't remember a specific one.
No, but I sort of think picturing her older as something that I'm more familiar with, and nothing was ringing any bells.
EastEnders, maybe, or something.
Might be, but I'm not a big EastEnders fan.
I've definitely seen her in loads. I know that. Yeah, I couldn't tell you any of the others, to be honest.
But you saying about guest stars like Linda Bellingham and that, and Robin Asquith. I mean, James Beck appeared in one, who was Walker in Dad's Army. You got Bob Todd, Jan Francis, Tony Selby, as you've mentioned. John Alden appears in one.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, that's one where he is basically an episode about him and Penny. He's like not really a Fenn Street. I mean, he does interact with some of them, but it's really about him and Penny, that one, which is weird.
Sally Thompson, Christopher Timothy must have been very young in that. Christopher Timothy, Christopher Higgins in the first one. There's lots of famous faces in this.
Indeed, and like I say, I cherry picked either the ones where I thought it was an important story point, or it's about Frankie Abbott. And there's honestly some of the stuff that comes out about Frankie Abbott in these, you could repurpose the Frankie Abbott story into like an indie horror film, psychological horror film. It's so weird. His mother is so weird. At one point, he goes on about, I'd like to know who my daddy is, and whenever he talks, she acts like she's gonna have a heart attack. Sort of thing. And in the end, she goes, he's got a secret government job. I can't tell you about it. So he's like, oh, he's a spy. And he goes and finds his dad, and he's basically a tea boy in a dole office.
Oh,
And
right.
he's like an old bloke who's a T-boy in it, and so like Frank is really disappointed. And when he goes back to the gang, you know how Frank, he tells the gang all sorts. Oh yeah, I've been going out with Julie Christie. You know, I'm managing Georgie Best. He's always saying stuff like this. When he goes, I saw my real dad today. He's a T-boy like me. And he's saying, what? He goes, I thought you were going out with Julie Christie. And I'm making fun. He goes, no, I just say that because to make myself look good. And you think it's the evolution of Frankie Abbott. And of course, he goes straight back to how he was before, straight after. He does. Yeah. He has this small moment of self-realization before he fully reverts. Yeah, I've got to tell you some of the disturbing things in this about Frankie Abbott. I didn't think this could be topped, but there was one episode where we see Frankie Abbott's mum bathing him.
No, really?
And he's like saying, "You sunk me boat." She's actually bathing a fully grown man. His mum.
Oh, yeah. So like, apart from the fact that the actor's probably in his mid-20s, he's actually playing a 20-year-old character anyway.
Yeah, being bathed. And he's constantly going on about chips and stuff like that. And then he meets Celeste, and you can imagine his mother. Absolutely, she basically tells Celeste he's dying of a terminal disease and she should leave him alone. And then Celeste works with Sharon in a boutique.
That's it. Yeah.
And then they go wind up. The gang go, all right, we got to get her back for this. So they go back and they sort of tell Frankie what she's been saying. She has to take it all back. But in the meantime, Frankie's doing all sorts of other weird things. He goes to the boutique. For some reason, they take Frankie on as a store detective. And the first minute he's left alone, a guy rocks up in a van and says, "Oh, we're suppliers. We've got to take everything back." He goes, "Really?" And they basically steal the entire shop. And it turns out the entire contents of the shop have been stolen by Peter Craven's employer, Bowler, this gangster guy, and taken to Bowler's house. And Duffy's decorating the house and saying, "It's a farce again," right? And they basically get all the clothes back. So it's nuts. But so Frankie Abbott having a bath was I thought the darkest, but we actually saw the one I recommended to you that you mentioned, Abbott of Arabia. He runs off with Celeste, doesn't he?
Goes to get married. It's right towards the very end. This is like the penultimate episode, isn't it? Yes. And from what you were telling me, it's been building up to this point, and you've got this real sort of fantasy element as well to do with this, this Arabian character with the poster on the wall.
Yeah, and Celeste is a bit of a dark horse, really. She goes nuts over this Arabian. Yeah. Frankie dresses up as it because he hears about it, and it doesn't really work, but he runs off with her. And at this point, this is the darkest point for me, we find out that Frankie Abbott's middle name is Oedipus.
Explains everything.
Oedipus. His mother named him Oedipus. That is not good.
I love little touches like that, though, when you find out, because we've been following this character now for like 5 years. Yeah. When you start finding out little bits of background and that, it just fleshes them out and it just makes them even more fascinating.
Yeah, but I mean, Rodney Trotter was a funny one, wasn't it? Rodney Charlton Trotter. Everyone laughed at that, but Oedipus.
Yeah, wow. Charlton Football Club, not Charlton Eston. That's
yeah, Charlton Athletic. Yeah. What made me laugh is the audience didn't react to that. No. I guess Oedipus wasn't that, it wasn't a big thing in the zeitgeist then, but it's like I was like,
very subtly done, just in the wedding scene. Yeah.
And then the final episode is more about Frank. Oh, I should have mentioned we lose the character of Maureen and Dennis in season 3 entirely. Maureen's off at a gynecology course, and Dennis gets on a train. We have the whole crew sitting at the train station with Sharon crying because Dennis is going off for something. So we only have 4 major characters, and I guess Mrs. Abbott too. Really.
I saw. Funny enough, you talking about ever decreasing circles. I've just rewatched season 1. And at the end of the DVD, there's an interview with Richard Bryars, and he's talking about John Esmond and Bob Larby and their writing. And he's like praising them and saying, fantastic, which they were, fantastic writers. He said, but when they got to the end of season 3 of Ever Decreasing Circles, they turned around to Richard Bryars and said, I'm so sorry, Richard, we are running out of ideas. If we carry on trying to flesh out your character now, it's going to develop into farce.
Yeah.
And Richard Briers went, absolutely fine. Stop it now while we're on top. And if that's the case in this, if they're losing characters, I can imagine that Esmond and Larby sort of said, do you know what? We've lost Dennis now. We've lost Maureen. Let's call it a day here. And then obviously moved on to get some in or whatever it was they were writing next. Like, I can see that because when we've got used to this core group of characters, as we say, over 5 years, and you start losing them, they were lucky with the fact that Carol Hawkins replaced Sharon absolutely.
Carol Hawkins was fantastic as Sharon.
Yeah, but I can see that after 3 series and 5 years, they're probably getting a little bit tired, a little bit pushing of ideas, and it could get a little bit too over the top if they carried on trying to push this. And who was it? Was it Ricky Gervais always says that 2 seasons is the perfect thing? Like 40 Towers only went for 2, The Office only went for 2,
Young Ones
2. Yeah. You know, that 2 season of 6 seems to have a little bit of magic to it. But do you know what? I'm going to go back and watch a few of these because season 3, well, Fenn Street Gang in total. I mean, I focused mainly on Please Sir when I was doing my rewatching. And I'm definitely going to go back and have a little look at a few of these. I might even go back into season 4 of Please Sir as well, just to see if it's as painful as I remember it being.
I have to say, the real for Fenn Street, it's almost always the Esmond and Larby ones are the stronger ones. When it's written by, and I think season 2 and 3 are mostly just those two, and season 1 it's a mix. But I mean, there was a couple of decent ones that weren't written by them, but honestly, Esmond and Larby were the strengths. The only weakness I found in season 1 is they replaced Malcolm McPhee with a different act. They couldn't do it, and you get to see how underwritten Craven is, because it's a different actor, therefore you don't have that same element. I mean, the guy did a good job with what he was given, but he was a Malcolm McPhee, and that was a problem, I think. And I also think that they obviously, they lost Dennis and Maureen. It may be the actors wanted out, but maybe they thought Dennis and Maureen were the weaker characters. But I personally, Craven might have been a better choice, and Dennis staying in would have been a better choice. I could kind of see Maureen, because she was always the more straight-laced one, wasn't she? Much of that has comic potential, so, you know. Frank Gamble is a definite shoo-in, as is Duffy and I think Sharon. Those are the 3 real big ones, and then after that, the others are slightly second tier, maybe.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a solid set. I have looked at, there is a box set called the Fenn Street Collection on Amazon, which is all of Please Sir, the movie, all of Fenn Street, and all of the other series, Bowler, for some reason. That'd
be interesting to go back and have a little look, because that must be unique to have like a series that had a spin-off, from the spin-off, and had a TV movie as well. You know, it was a big screen movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's really hard to think of a spin-off as a spin-off. I mean, I was trying to think, is there any? And I was thinking Happy Days had quite a few spin-offs, but I don't think any of them had spin-offs of their own. So
no.
Yeah,
it might
it's quite unusual.
Yeah.
And spin-offs weren't a big thing. I mean, there's a few, like George and Mildred was a spin-off of Mad About the House, so it was very good. And stuff like that. But yeah, so I think that winds it up. I mean, I'm kind of obsessed with Frank Abbott, to be honest.
I noticed
that helps. But it's such a weird, you could honestly make a horror film of it, and I might go look at those ones Dave Barry did that you mentioned.
I don't know if they're online, but have a look on IMDb. It's definitely in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, and he's pulled in a couple of famous faces like Caroline Munro, I'll say, for this one called Frankula. And there's one that's just been made. He's due for release this year or late last year. So I don't know if it's just a little passion project or he's doing it to release at some little film festival or something like that. But he's still milking that character 50 years down the line. Which
is fair enough.
Yeah, good to see.
I thought I'd read he did a one-man play about Frankie Abbott as well, but I could be wrong.
He might well have done. I think, you know, that is his life, and it has been since he was a 20-year-old actor.
Yeah, I did YouTube Dave Barry, and I found a little clip where he was basically soliciting for people to, if they wanted personalised messages as Frankie Abbott, you could like arrange for him to send a personal message to someone.
That's
and he was in full character, but he was like an old bloke. That was the thing.
Yeah,
It's
say
kind
that's
of-
your birthday present sorted out for now.
Get an old man to pretend to be Frank the Hammer again. Well, it is Frank the Hammer, but you know what I mean. But yeah, he never really changes. Like I say, he's obsessed with belly buttons, and there's some weird stuff comes out. But I have to say the weirdness is around his mother. I mean, he's weird too in his fantasy world, but the real dark weirdness is from the mother kind of character. But we have to mention Barbara Mitchell is amazing, and there is quite poignant points where she talks about I won't be here long, and she did die a few years after this of cancer. Yes,
because I remember being other things as well. In probably Carry On, she might have appeared in or something. I've seen her face in other things.
Yeah, but she didn't last much longer, unfortunately. She was in a show I used to quite like when I was a kid called Beryl's Light. It was like a soap opera thing, comedy soap opera thing. She was like one of the neighbours in that, but she didn't. I think she died at 48.
Oh, there you go. No, that rings a bell. That Beryl's Lot. I'm pretty sure I've seen that. Yeah, you're probably the only podcast to actually be talking about Please Sir and the Fenn Street Gang.
Or Beryl's Lot.
Or Beryl's Lot. I've been doing that. Yeah, it's an interesting. I love that period of British sort of sitcom TV history because, as you say, there was things like On the Buses and Nearest and Dearest and all of those before. I don't know, some of it didn't quite work for ITV in the later 70s and the early 80s. Things like Duty Free and, those ones that were just too, I don't know, too twee.
A bit twee and they went a bit, I don't know, middle class, but not doing it well, maybe. I think the real standout comedies for me were the Eric Chappell ones, which is I Rise in Damp and Only When I Laugh.
Yeah,
they both still stand up. They're a bit problematic. I hate that word, but I'm going to say it anyway. A bit problematic these days with some of the content, but it's like when you read Dickens, you have to understand the context to appreciate it properly. Comedies are the same, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're of their age, and yeah, all right. Modern day audiences can criticise as much as they want, but for us, I mean, it's more the nostalgia and the memories as well, mate. We grew up as kids watching these shows, and when I watch them now, it's just like it just takes me back.
Yeah, indeed. And we're just watching a show set in London with kids when you were a kid. It's one of those kind of things. I mean, I was a little old to be on the same wavelength exactly, but I could appreciate Grange Hill, for example, though I was a little older than the kids in that. But the kids of that age would have been totally into Grange Hill for sure.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll wind up there. But Scott, tell us about some of the stuff you do and how people can find you.
Have we got time? I mean,
go ahead.
I think the easiest way to find any podcast now is just on your podcatcher of your choice. I mean, we could sit here and rattle off iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, whatever. Whatever you can get a podcast on, you'll find all of your shows as well as all of mine. Stinking Paws, Pause, classic movie podcast discussion. Me and a couple of mates get together quite regularly for that one. Real Britannia, REEL Britannia, classic British movies which you've guested on a couple of times now, mate. We're going right back to old Will Hayes, George Formby's, going up to even modern day stuff like we did the Churchill one, The Finest Hour with Gary Oldman. We're covering every British movie. We're doing all the carry-ons, all the Bonds, running through the Norman Wisdoms in sequence, that sort of thing. I've got a documentary style one that's been running for about 3 or 4 years on the history of the 1960s called Rainbow Valley. So
which I've just got to interject here is an amazing. The production is amazing, and the episodes are properly enthralling. You can't stop listening once you start. So bear that in mind.
You will be more than pleased to hear that the one I'm scripting at the moment, because I'm up to 1964, is the making of Zulu.
Wow. Yes. Yes. And I know a lot about the making of, from Michael Caine's autobiographies, I know a fair bit about the making of Zulu.
Yeah.
I don't know loads, but I know that side of it. Yeah. Amazing.
I found a Stanley Baker one and a Cy Enfield, but I'm doing my usual solid research into that at the moment, mate. So give it a couple of months and that'll be the next Rainbow Valley.
Oh, yeah, you have had some great episodes. Dusty Springfield, you talked about Johnny Cash. There's been some really good ones, really interesting and quite sad in a way, but some of the stuff you covered, amazing. So I would strongly recommend going back and listening to all of those.
Thank you.
You put them out fairly rarely, don't you? But they are really good.
They need a lot of work, mate. So they're running now about 3 or 4 a year, which I think is a nice way of doing it, because I set myself the target of trying to do a monthly and I was just breaking my neck amongst all the other things I was doing. So to devote the time they need, I just take my time and we sort of say like four a year, no more than that. And it's nice because they are a generous length as well. You know, they're a couple of hours, some are like 3 hours long. But you have to do it. If you're telling the story of Matt Monroe from birth to death, you know, you need a 3-hour podcast to cover it. And finally, for about a year now, I've been honoured to be one of the co-hosts of the official Talking Pictures TV podcast as well. That goes out every 2 weeks. That's quite an easy gig, actually, mate. You guys that do the watching of the TV show and listening to the podcast do all the hard work, because we ask the listener to send in reviews of what's coming
I
up.
like it. It's like a variety pack podcast, isn't it? You get various people coming in and telling you what they think, and they're all pretty damn good, but original and different. So I really like that one.
Not a variety.
I just want to go back to your 60s one, though, man. The production values on that is so amazing. It's one of the best produced podcasts I've ever heard. That and The Secret History of Hollywood, I consider the peer standard for good quality, real good quality. Mine aren't good quality. I just record stuff out. I don't
up there with Adam Roach. God bless you. He's a dear.
So good, so good. All of those Scott's on, and they're all fascinating. And I do listen to all of them.
And you appear on all of them as well, mate.
I haven't been on the talking what's it yet.
Well, that's up to you.
I know. I always think I should have done a thing on that. I love that film, and I always don't get involved. I should, because it's right on my Strasse.
Of course it is. And also you're coming on to the Real Britannia in the next few weeks, hopefully, because we're going to be doing Doctor Who and the Daleks, the Peter Cushing movie at some point.
Yes.
Yeah. So looking forward to that, mate.
Yeah, great. All right, well, thank you, Scott, for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
And for me, mate, that has been an absolutely wonderful morning. I've got a lot more to go back and watch now. I'm in the mood to go and find out what happened in the Fenn Street Gang completely, because I sort of cherry picked a few, and memories were coming back, but I just need to watch them all a bit more.
You'll enjoy them. Okay, then. So time to say goodbye. So bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.